The growl of the flat-six engine still echoed in my ears as I eased the garage door shut behind the brand-new pink Porsche 911. The sound lingered in the air, rich and mechanical, like the final note of a concert. The moment the latch clicked into place, a strange chill crept up my spine. It was that unmistakable feeling of being watched, like someone was mentally measuring your happiness and preparing to file a complaint about it. I stepped back out into the driveway, and there she was, Karen, not technically on the HOA board, but spiritually, absolutely, the supreme commander. She treated the neighborhood like her personal surveillance state. Clipboard in hand, oversized visor angled dramatically, she stood across the street staring at my house like a hawk that had just spotted a glittering pink violation. I hadn't taken more than 3 steps down the driveway before she power walked over, sneakers slapping against the pavement with unnecessary urgency. Is that she jabbed her finger toward the garage as if accusing it of a crime. Is that yours? I shrugged casually. Well, I parked it here, so I certainly hope so. Her lips tightened into a line so thin it looked painful. You can't just bring vehicles like that into this neighborhood. Vehicles like a sports car? I asked, blinking innocently. It's not just a sports car, she snapped, clutching her clipboard like she was seconds away from using it as a weapon. This is a family community. That car is, she faltered dramatically, pink. I tilted my head. Distracting? Offensive, she corrected sharply, as if the color itself had insulted her lineage. I leaned casually against the garage door, mostly because I knew it irritated her. It's an anniversary gift for my wife. She's always wanted one. Something shifted in her expression. Not confusion, not shocked. It was worse, envy, and then entitlement bloomed behind her eyes like a dangerous idea taking root. Well, she said, lowering her voice to a whisper shout, if you're just giving it away as a gift, why didn't you think to donate something like that to the HOA raffle? I blinked. Donate a Porsche to the HOA raffle? I laughed before I could stop myself. It escaped like a reflex. That was apparently the wrong response. Her voice rose loud enough to bounce off every roof in the cul-de-sac. I want it for free. Even the breeze seemed to hesitate. For a second, the entire street felt frozen. I glanced around. Curtains twitched. Blinds shifted. Neighbors were absolutely watching this unfold like it was primetime television. Karen, I said carefully, as if explaining gravity to someone who had chosen not to believe in it. You can't just demand someone hand over their car. Oh, I can, she hissed. And I will. With that, she spun on her heel and marched off in the direction of the HOA president's house. Visor still tilted like she was heading into battle. At the time, I thought it was dramatic posturing. I had no idea how serious she was. The next morning carried the kind of eerie quiet that only exists right before chaos. I was on the porch, enjoying my coffee, when my phone buzzed with an email notification. Subject line: urgent mandatory. HOA meeting vehicle violation hearing. Vehicle violation hearing. Over a pink Porsche. I didn't even need to scroll to know who had filed it. The sender line confirmed it anyway. At the request of resident Karen H., of course. That evening, I walked into the clubhouse half expecting hidden cameras to pop out and someone to yell that I'd been pranked. Instead, I was greeted by a folding table, a row of exhausted-looking board members, and fluorescent lighting that somehow made everything feel more ridiculous. And at the center of it all sat Karen. She was perched in her chair like she was awaiting a ceremonial crown. The HOA president, Mike, cleared his throat with the weary tone of a man who had seen too much. Let's begin, he said. Karen, you filed a complaint regarding your neighbor's new vehicle. She rose slowly, dramatically like someone about to challenge a rival to a duel. Yes, she announced. The vehicle in question is disruptive, inappropriate for our community aesthetic, and a blatant display of excessive wealth intended to make other residents feel inferior. I raised my hand slightly. It's an anniversary gift for my wife. That makes it worse. Karen shot back immediately. If he can afford luxury vehicles for recreational purposes, he can certainly afford to contribute more generously to this community. Mike sighed deeply. And what exactly are you requesting, Karen? There was a pause, a theatrical one. Then she delivered her verdict like she had just negotiated world peace. I believe the vehicle should be seized by the HOA and repurposed for our annual charity raffle. The room went silent. Mike blinked slowly. Seized by the HOA? Yes. She crossed her arms, chin lifted triumphantly. I want it for free, for the community. One board member's mouth actually fell open. Another stared at her as if she proposed annexing the entire neighboring subdivision. I leaned forward slightly. You do understand the HOA isn't a governing body with seizure authority, right? You can't confiscate private property. She pointed at me sharply. Then if he refuses to comply, the vehicle must be removed from the neighborhood immediately. A murmur spread across the table. Mike rubbed his forehead. We're going to need to review this. We'll reconvene in 24 hours. Chairs scraped. Papers shuffled. The meeting dissolved into quiet disbelief. As I stood to leave, Karen stepped closer, her voice low and venomous. This isn't over, she whispered, and the way she said it made one thing very clear. She wasn't joking. The wild part, she meant every word she said. And by the next morning, things shifted from ridiculous to openly aggressive. I woke up to a harsh, metallic scraping sound, sharp, grinding, unmistakable. Not background noise. Not something you roll over and ignore. The kind of sound that sends a warning straight to your gut. Before your brain fully wakes up, I threw on pajama bottoms and rushed outside. And stopped cold. Karen was standing in my driveway. In my driveway, she had a tape measure stretched across the front of my wife's pink Porsche, one hand pressing it against the bumper, the other scribbling notes onto her clipboard like she was conducting a forensic investigation. What are you doing? I demanded. She didn't even look embarrassed. Measuring, she replied calmly. This vehicle exceeds the maximum allowable driveway projection by at least 2 inches. It's parked inside the garage. Not when the garage door is open, she fired back instantly. And yesterday, I observed you unloading groceries with the vehicle partially extended beyond the threshold. That was 12 seconds. She made a bold check mark on her paper. Violation documented. Before I could escalate this into something louder, my neighbor, Luis, jogged over from across the street. Karen, he said carefully, like someone approaching a startled animal. You can't be on his property. She pivoted toward him dramatically. I am the community monitor. Luis blinked. There is no such position. The board told you that in writing. Twice. She waved her hand dismissively. Some of us actually care about maintaining property values. I stepped in front of the Porsche, crossing my arms. If you touch this car again, she raised her palm. I am not touching it. Then she gestured toward the curb behind her. A tow truck sat there, engine idling. For a split second, I felt my pulse hammer in my ears. You called a tow truck? For my car? On my property? Her chin lifted proudly. The HOA permits immediate removal of vehicles in violation. Since you refuse to donate it for community benefit, it must be removed from the premises. The tow truck driver leaned halfway out his window, clearly uncomfortable. She told me it was her car. Almost laughed. Almost. This car is registered to my wife, I said. Would you like to see the title? Karen's eyes flickered, just briefly. A crack in the armor. Then she stiffened. Documents can be falsified. Luis stepped closer. Ma'am, if you hook that vehicle up, you're committing theft. Karen's glare could have melted siding. She snatched her phone out of her pocket. Fine, I'll escalate this. The board will be forced to act. And just like that, she marched off again. The tow truck driver muttered an apology, put the truck in gear, and rolled away as if he wanted to erase himself from the entire situation. But Karen wasn't finished. Not even remotely, because that evening, she went nuclear. Night settled over the neighborhood with that tense stillness that follows a storm when everything seems calm. But you can't shake the feeling another wave is coming. My wife and I had just finished dinner when a heavy thud slammed against our front door. Not a knock, a thud. I opened it to find a thick envelope jammed into the handle, so overstuffed it looked ready to burst. On the front, written in aggressive, looping cursive, were the words, "Final notice, immediate action required." Fantastic. I muttered. Karen had upgraded from driveway surveillance to what looked like official documentation. Inside were 12 printed pages, photos of the Porsche from multiple angles, close-up shots of the tires, measurements highlighted in neon marker, accusations scrawled in red ink like a furious teacher grading a failed exam, and at the bottom, emergency HOA, vote recommendation for immediate vehicle removal. My wife leaned over my shoulder. She's completely lost it. Yeah, I replied quietly. But tonight, she wants a stage. At exactly 8 p.m., we walked into the clubhouse. Every chair was filled. Neighbors whispered to one another. Some looked irritated, some amused, a few genuinely curious whether this pink Porsche saga had finally broken the HOA's sanity, and at the front of the room stood Karen, arms folded, visor on, windbreaker zipped, expression set to righteous fury. The HOA president stepped to the podium. All right, everyone, he began. We're here to address a formal complaint. Karen shot to her feet like she'd been launched by springs. We are here, she declared loudly, to confront a threat to our community. She held up a printed photo of the Porsche like it was evidence in a courtroom drama. This vehicle is a distraction. It's a hazard. It is a blatant violation of our aesthetic standards. From somewhere in the back, someone muttered, "It's just a car." Karen, she ignored it completely, and since the owner refuses to donate it for community use, she continued, voice rising, "I propose immediate removal." Mike pinched the bridge of his nose. Clearly exhausted, "Karen," he said slowly, "we've reviewed the bylaws." Her lips curved into a triumphant smile. Then he continued, "There is no rule prohibiting the vehicle. None. It is legally parked. It is legally owned. And the HOA has no authority to seize or demand donation of personal property." The room rippled with quiet laughter. Karen's confidence shattered mid-expression. But he bought it to show off. She sputtered. I stepped forward, steady and calm. Despite 3 days of chaos, I bought it to surprise my wife. And since then, we've been harassed non-stop. Mike nodded. The board has voted. The complaint is dismissed. Effective immediately. The finality in his voice echoed. Karen stood frozen, wide-eyed, shaking. Then she released a shrill, furious screech that probably registered on wildlife sensors and stormed out of the clubhouse. Visor still firmly in place. The meeting dissolved into chatter and scattered applause. The next morning, there was a new addition to Karen's lawn. A large for sale sign. 2 weeks later, she was gone, and the pink Porsche? It still rests peacefully in our driveway. No tape measures. No tow trucks. No emergency votes. Exactly where it belongs. If this story felt even slightly familiar, tap like. Every click reminds people they don't have to surrender to absurd demands. Subscribe to Karen's Hub for more moments where everyday people stand firm and common sense wins. And tell me in the comments, if you were in my position, what would you have done?